I hope you're doing wonderful. Hit the limit of being able to record, and so it just shut it down. So let's continue with a beautiful idea. I want you to think about back when in this republic, not a democracy, you constantly have to retake again and again popular opinion. There's never an establishment of truth. Nothing is self-evident and therefore God-given. And it's one step past mob rule. You know what's popular? Having tons of zippers that did nothing on your clothing. That was popular. The whole point of governance in this republic is to act like a balancing, a writing moment, if you will, to the fads that can take place in people, the airs that can become popularly held. So the portion that I can't see how or where has actually occurred in the great American experiment yet is that in a republic, the snake is to feed on itself, right? Like the public servants feed first on public servants. Now, the fangs in that snake eating itself are law enforcement, prosecutors, judiciary. And it's easy to see and understand why this is so important. Say we got the most heinous of violent, mentally ill, horrible, drug-addled son of a bitch who every week as he runs out of money is doing threatening some violence, stealing, causing all these problems. And juxtaposed to that, we're going to put a corrupt domestic court judge. Now, why domestic court? Because in the circle of attorneys and courts, it's not even considered a real court. I mean, if you're a domestic court attorney, you're a loser on the hierarchy of attorneys. You suck. You don't face being disbarred. Like, that doesn't happen to domestic attorneys. You don't face, what do you call that? Malpractice suits. You don't face that. You don't face immediately going to jail. You get zero oversight for this building by local law enforcement, local prosecutors, county prosecutors, right? It's like the list of people that when they break the law, the argument is go get back in line, pay more money, and you can access your legal rights. So how much harm? Like, they'll take judges that are terrible as criminal judges, and instead of putting them in jail for their crimes, they'll cut them loose on domestic courts. After all, what could they do? How much damage could they do? Well, the idea of the Constitution, particularly in the beginning, is it's framing out what the agreed definitions of tyranny are. Anytime through all history when any government has ever interfered with the First Amendment, they have met the definition of a tyranny. And if somebody is religious, a parent, understand they were freely born, you have now obligated all those people to work together to kill everybody involved. Holy shit, that's a serious problem, right? I mean, think of how many times you can see and watch police officers violating the First Amendment. And they say, oh, well, they don't get trained enough. Really? What portion of cops are vets? How many times are we going to have somebody take an oath to uphold the Constitution and then want to pretend, oh, well, they didn't know any better? It's the same lie that was allowed that ended up creating the Bar Association. These people had doctorates in knowing better. And instead of holding them to legal account, we say, oh, well, I mean, what are you going to do? They didn't know any better. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. And so, as public servants continue to just violate the Constitution again and again and again and again and again, they are seeding violence into we the people. So somebody goes and bears false testimony at a court with no evidence to support the testimony they've given. There's laws to address all of that. The judge doesn't care because it's their top campaign donor. There's laws to address all of that too. Well, what happens when somebody goes in and every page they sign to is another federal crime, another state crime? Like, what are we talking about? And they say, well, what's the significance of it? What's the damage of it? Well, it's easy to see. How about vet suicide? And it's not that the domestic courts were present in some of the vet suicides. They were present in like 90-some% of all vet suicides. You know what drives not... Now let's take just your neighbor who has no training and put them through the same hell. Pretty easy to understand why the suicide rate would go up. The unchecked mental illness and or evil of the mother drives the suicide rates. Single mothers drive the suicide rates of the kids. Single mothers raise the inmates in our prisons. Like every measurement ever taken by science does not put mothers in a very good light. Yet single fathers raise kids that you can't measure a difference of between a married couple. So how could it ever be that doing what's right for society or like, and the other is this ridiculous notion of, oh, well, we need a new law. Do you? Or did you just fail to enforce all the laws we already had? Like, do you really need to end slavery if you actually did your job of enforcing the First Amendment and enforcing the Second Amendment? And if the Civil War was to bring the end of slavery, where were the Democrats and the people who organized so ardently against this country? Where were their incarcerations? Where were their hangings? If public servants took seriously their oath to uphold the Constitution against all her enemies, foreign and domestic, where were all the incarceration of Democrats for Jim Crow, KKK, handouts shattering the black families, quotas? Got to see that just in my existence. 30 years of an unconstitutional, which means it's a federal crime, that was premeditated, argued for, to be cut loose for over a generation on people. And of course it has an enormous effect because we're all to be equally yoked. There is no special class in the United States Constitution, save we the people. What's the point of having any law enforcement exist if they're unwilling to defend the United States Constitution? What's the point of them? What's the point of having somebody take an oath saying, I will uphold the United States Constitution against all her enemies, foreign and domestic, to then go ahead and use the excuse of tomorrow's calamities, oh, the horrible things that might happen tomorrow, as the excuse for why none of your Constitution exists today. That's treason. In every way, that's treason. Yet, what did you see from your governor during COVID? And I say, oh, well, Jim, it's a virus pandemic. Yeah, but like here in Ohio, the only hospital system that was overrun is the one that's mismanaged by the county. And it's a horrible place. Nobody should go there. All humans devoid accountability are mentally ill. So, yes, we live in a sexist society because we don't hold women to the same account. You get the vote, but you don't get the draft. You get the lie of, oh, like the vote was given to the women, not because the women fought for it. There were domestic terrorists that called themselves feminists that were fighting and blowing up all sorts of shit, but their rich daddy got them out of jail. They wanted to end the American experiment by the destruction of the family. The tyranny, the unchecked public servant cut loose the woman's vote. And I'll let my great grandmother, she phrased it simply. Oh, because every couple that I ever know, the wife's going to vote opposite of the husband. It's just canceling the husband's vote on something that we don't know about, and ultimately it's just going to lead to the destruction of the American family. In the destruction of the American family, you lose everything in the country. Let's get back to those kids in that domestic court. What costs Americans more? The kid raised by the single mom, causing all sorts of problems in and out of jail, or the kid who comes out of a healthy household, gainfully employed, creates businesses? Like, think of that effect. It's an enormous fiscal effect. You could never hire enough cops and firefighters to offset that. It could never occur. What's the point of having them do something on the record when zero law enforcement is willing to pull the record and go arrest the son of a bitch? What's the point of any Americans having ever died in any conflict, let alone the Revolutionary War, if public servants want to go ahead and pretend, well, you got to understand, there's this mythical sovereign king, and as such, this mythical sovereign king, provides immunity over the Constitution. And the only reason, by the way, that argument ever got any traction is because of the abject, supreme failure of our oath takers to actually defend the United States Constitution. When you keep kids out of school, you're not affecting their First Amendment rights, their Second Amendment rights, their Third, their Fourth, their Fifth, their Sixth. It's affecting none of them. So instead of there actually being accountability for the horrific federal criminals that have been public servants, instead of there being any accountability, the can gets kicked. And how the can gets kicked is they say, oh, well, we'll make a new law. We're going to make a new law, or we're going to make a new government agency. Republic's that snake eating itself, right? Law enforcement, prosecutors, judiciary. The whole reason they're state run is because they are going to feed on themselves. They're to feed on themselves. Is that what you've seen? Is that what you've seen in the news? So if you have a multiple cities within a county that all have prosecutors and police chiefs. Then you got a county sheriff and county police chief. Then you got state law and you got state prosecutors. How could there ever be a need for an FBI whose mandate is to hold publicly elected officials to legal account? And let's be honest, FBI, you're absolute fucking failures. Who violates the Constitution more than J. Edgar Hoover? How could you ever get into, oh, well, we did great work with anti-terrorism? Did you? Did you? Because unchecked public servants' crimes, that's a domestic terrorist on a whole nother scale in it. So it's okay to let your neighbor who went and got a doctorate in knowing better, passed a test to prove that they knew better, spent their own money to convince everybody, hey, I'm the person for the job, to then face zero legal accountability. And the counter argument for this is ridiculous too, because it sounds like this. Well, I mean, if that were so, who would ever run for office? Not criminals. Not criminals. You mean there's human beings that are willing to stand proud in the middle of a firefight, just put their eyes out, see what's going on with complete disregard of their own well-being? Yes. Do we call them cowards? No. No, we do not. What's the point of having humanity survive the Spanish flu, to then have all these medical schools do all these studies? What can we learn from this? And the beauty back then was everybody did their own shindig. Towns behaved differently. Counties behaved differently. There was no uniform approach to the problem, which gives you, on hindsight, a beautiful indicator of what may work and what definitely did not work. Masks didn't work. Closing an economy didn't work. That's why the CDC pandemic protocol, you don't close the economy and you don't close schools. Because it's nice to have a mechanism that builds penicillin, Z-Packs. Everything that you want to give is a byproduct. All your things you call medicine are a byproduct of an economy. And historically speaking, when you stop an economy, it doesn't always start back up. How about, let's say, okay, you're a medical professional. So would you remove air, water, food, clothing, shelter, socialization, the basic needs of human life? You're going to take them away because you think what in your hierarchy? And it's been so unhinged for so long. Like, if we can't agree that there is a truth that we're all trying to discover and figure out, and we're going to put our own slight distortions to them, it's a direction. It's like a compass. It's like the North Star, the sun. If there is no truth, then the entire Constitution falls apart. There's no point to it. It doesn't exist. Now, I can have a little bit of patience with this for those Americans back in the 1700s who grew up part of feudal systems and caste systems. Like, I find it obvious why the kingdoms of Germany end up becoming about the same size as the counties of Ohio. The idiots never had an example to think any differently of. There's this wonderful moment in the Revolutionary War where, these two fellas, they had nothing but respect for each other. They have saved each other's life. The one dude's confused because he's like, listen, you're a slave. When we win, you're still going to be a slave. Why are you out fighting me? Why are you fighting this so hard? I don't understand it. Most beautiful answer ever. Because right now we're all slaves. And once you're free, won't you pick me up? Now, when you realize everything I just said is wonderfully accurate, incredibly true, then the problem can seem so overwhelming. It's like, well, holy shit. Are you talking about just killing and slaughtering every public servant? And on behalf of all the victims of county crimes, city crimes, all done by public servants, state crimes done by public servants, it would give an enormous joy if this 4th of July, instead of fireworks, they were all just getting slaughtered. There would be no more. The next batch that volunteered to run for office, I guarantee you they'd show up to work. I guarantee you they wouldn't be trying to figure out how to steal a bunch of money. I guarantee you they wouldn't be making arguments about some mythical sovereign king over the Constitution. But that art of war, when you have an enemy overwhelmed, like I've spent more than 3,000 days bicycling around to homes in Ohio to let them know what is going on in Ohio. Like Paul Revere on a horse, I had a bicycle. And I just keep running into endless people. It's not like I'm the minority. I'm an accident that's been criminally abused by imperfect system. I am the most common outcome of a system that faces zero legal accountability. And it's not just zero. They make money. They get union votes. They're able to steal. They get all sorts of cash and prizes from these heinous acts that they do. So let's remember our Lao Tzu, America. Give your enemy the golden bridge of retreat. And this is the golden bridge of retreat that I suggest here in the state of Ohio. Since nothing takes more from any culture than the abuse of their kids, and nothing brings together the diversity of adults all agreeing on a subject of criminal child abuse. I don't care if you're Elon Musk or the mass murdering psychopath in the most ardent of prisons in the deepest bowels of Mother Russia. None of them have any tolerance for criminal child abuse. None of them. You know who locks up the victims of these heinous crimes? Your county courts running debtors' prisons. If you owe the county any money in Ohio, you know what they do? They take away all your license here in the state. You can't drive. You can't practice law. You can't practice insurance. Anything you had that required a license is now gone as they squeeze you for that money. And then they want to go, like on domestic courts, they say, well, we don't run a debtor's prison. We're arresting people because they failed to heed a court order. You mean the court where no one was sworn in, where there's no burdens of evidence, where there's no legal accountability for heinous crimes? You mean the court that requires every free person to kill everybody involved with it? And make no mistake, you want to know why kids aren't getting married? 2 generations of watching this horse shit. 2 generations of watching a woman being able to say any lies she wants to a public servant, and that public servant uses those lies as the excuse to weaponize their position for cash and prizes and inflicting pain and suffering on we the people. When my kids are taken because of a rifle hanging on the wall and I go to the police, it's not a matter of opinion, it's a matter of court record. How come the police didn't pull up the court record and be like, holy shit, and they go arrest them? It's not because they held the Constitution supreme. If judges faced any legal accountability whatsoever, then why would you ever want to put down a matter of record that you took away an American's kids, a pharmacist, somebody with a PhD who contributes to society, is walking their kids to school, holding their hands, and that's going to be the argument you're willing to put on record for taking away your kids? Or how about even the more heinous? Judge, if you take away my kids and give them to her, she's going to kill them. You can't do that. Oh, yeah? Don't tell me what I can and can't do. Harumph, harumph. No one's sworn in. No evidence needed. No accountability present. Takes away the kids. The mother kills all the kids. Dad gets arrested and incarcerated and can't do anything to help the kids because that judge's life was threatened. And then after it all plays out, it turns out that judge was wrong. Where are the charges? Where's that accountability? How many years do you think public servants can do this? And let's not make any other mistakes here in Ohio. Thinking like, well, I mean, sometimes judges are new. You know how many judges we have that are kids to judges and grandkids to judges? Not growing up in an environment of supreme accountability, growing up in the distortion of zero accountability. You want to know why women's mental health is such trash? Because they're not being held accountable. All humans devoid accountability are mentally ill or evil. I went to court for 2 years, never saw the judge. You got to buy an attorney to get access to the backroom off-record deals of how they're going to cut up your property. And then as the unemployed primary caregiver of the kids, who on my job description on taxes and my job description on school applications that I'd filled out, all said housewife. Taxes supported it too. That's why I got awarded spousal support. But I wasn't restored with my kids. I was stripped of my attorney. That's not before being shook down by the attorney that I couldn't afford. I only got an attorney because I borrowed money from a friend. But what kind of leadership is it to just borrow money so that you can buy your way out of the extortions that should never be taking place? If I'm such the anomaly, how come is it we're 3,445 days into it with the cities within Summit County doing fuck all, the county doing fuck all, and the state of Ohio doing fuck all? Repeated letters to a governor, repeated letters to the senator, repeated letters to my congressional representative before they forced me to become homeless. And when I say they made me homeless, they didn't take my shit and give it to the kids. The county took my shit because I went to law enforcement. The county took all my shit because I went to the FBI. Because I'm not playing ball. And you want to pretend that there's good judges in Ohio? The argument that I would make on why that doesn't exist is because they fund their retirement as a percentage of all the monies they extort through the domestic courts. Slavery, no rights to own land, own personal property, vote, travel, work. If you take away all your licensure, you just took away travel, voting, and working. You have no rights to guns. As soon as you walk in a domestic court, any gun in the house will be used as the excuse for, we just care about the kids, and you lose all access to your kids instantly. In a court, no one's sworn in it. That's called slavery. And the proof of it is you don't have any rights to see your kids. So what happens most of the time in Ohio is people flee the state. They go to Florida. They go someplace else where they can start a life again from scratch. Not being able to be present, not being able to have a life, not being able to hug their kid, not being able to see them on birthday parties, not being able to get any of that. So that these heinous federal criminals can go ahead and continue to exist. So what's this golden, since I know that any American hearing this is just refreshing, unless you're one of those horrible public servants, what's the golden bridge of retreat for these sons of bitches? Well, that's easy. You give them an Eagle project that everybody gets on board with. You know how you find the worst criminals in the public service sector? You follow who had the most money within that, like, let's use a domestic court. In Summit County domestic court, who's the judge's top campaign donor? You review every single case between that judge and their top campaign donor because you're going to find a pattern. And then in the other place you look, and this is even more important, the people that had to go through the system with nothing. You know how grotesque it is to pretend that you're building a safety net for somebody when the net that you're building is literally the predation? And I mean, that's exactly what it is. You know how many years Summit County prosecutor took out advertisements on Valentine's Day? You old child support? Turn them in. We'll lock them up. Summit County's domestic courts own numbers. Over 90% of the time, they place criminally abused kids with their abuser. And it's not because it's a hard job. It's because laws aren't applied. Accountability is not applied. So therefore, words make no difference. Words don't matter. And if you wanted to manage a thing, you would have to have first experienced this thing. Look at our new governor candidates here in Ohio. Busy running around trying to convince everybody, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring back jobs. Oh, I'm going to make Ohio great. You know what you don't hear any of them talking about? The actual job of a governor. What's the point of having the Ohio State Supreme Court rule twice that how we fund our schools is unconstitutional and then allow every county to be committing heinous federal crimes? And none of them changed how they did their bills. What's the point of it? What's the point of having a governor who allows the state prosecutor to, like, how many public service servants has Robert Yost locked up? I mean, according to endless studies before COVID, Ohio was in the top 3, if not number 1, for the most corrupt state in the union. So where's the line of the heinous public servants being arrested by them? How about your county prosecutors? I call a county prosecutor right away. Oh my God, dude, they took away my kids because of a rifle. Help me. Their mother is bragging how I will never see those kids. She won't shut up about it. She's bragging about it to the court. Help me. You don't get a phone call back. You don't get any of your letters answered back. You can finally get them to respond on Facebook, and they'll say, When you say, my kids are being criminally abused, please help me, their response, we'd be happy to help you with your bill. You go to the Cyberlink building because you say, oh, that's a federal building filled with a bunch of attorneys and people who are supposed to give a shit about the Constitution. Help. Oh, that's not what we do. We don't get to pick the cases. We don't get to do any of that. You go down the street to the FBI. Oh, that's not what we do. No. They'll take your ID. You won't talk to anybody. Nobody will interview you. They'll give you a phone number. You'll call that phone number and you'll get nothing. That'll be best case. Or they'll feed you back to your abuser so that you can be called up by a county detective and be threatened some more. Denied any help for your kids being criminally abused, but be threatened for what it is you're saying and what it is you're doing, and you better start playing ball. I mean, after all, that dude's doing me a favor. You know who knows how corrupt they are? He does. So he's wanting me to not interact with it. So he thinks he's doing me a favor. Or you bicycle around to the neighboring counties and you talk to their elected public officials. Oh, yeah, Summit County is a shithole. It's incredibly corrupt. What makes you think, well, why would I think you're any different? What do you mean? What have you done to get the state to hold Summit County to legal account because they're putting at risk your life? Why the hell would I care about you? Why do you expect me to care about your kids when you're not willing to care about mine? Why would we ever allow Mike DeWine's family tree to exist? Now, this is where people go, oh, wait, hold on now. America has a wonderful history of providing grace. And as soon as you put down that fight is over, and we don't hold that harsh line. Like, that's not how we do. And I would say, yeah, that's the people who are willing to concede that the United States Constitution is supreme. Not people who got doctorates in knowing better, who then want to pretend it doesn't exist. Willing to become millionaires precisely because they're fine criminally abusing their neighbors through their kids. My tyranny didn't attack me because I was doing something horrendous. They attacked me because I was being healthy, walking the kids to school, taking them to their physician's appointments, cooking them breakfast, cooking them dinner from scratch, rebuilding a home from scratch, teaching the neighbors how to become plumbers and electricians. That's why I was stripped of everything. Because I hadn't done anything wrong, so I had no reason not to believe that the Akron City Police would want to actually enforce the fucking law in their city. And they say, oh, then the next argument. Oh, well, I mean, they might not have gotten your message. Well, I threatened the life of the police chief. Why didn't it go immediately to the feds? Like, I'm not threatening the life of a publicly elected official. I'm trying to uphold the United States Constitution while pursuing what's God-given, self-evident, and inalienable, like a father's right to their child, like my rights to own land, like my rights to own personal property, my rights to own a fucking gun, my rights to speak like this. I don't want it to be devoid consequences. 3,400 and some days. Are you kidding me? So what's that golden bridge that you allow your enemy to retreat on? Since domestic courts drive all suicides, since domestic courts drive vet suicides, since domestic courts deal in slavery, mythical sovereign kings over the Constitution, debtors' prisons. We're not going to refight the American Revolution to put an end to that. We're not going to refight the Civil War to put the end to that. And if you let it continue until the violence finally bubbles out, organized by the best of Americans, I sure as shit guarantee you Mike DeWine's family's not going to exist. The supremacy of the United States Constitution and the presence of justice allows for grace. That's what allows for grace to exist. And yeah, you should forgive your enemy. You should pray for your enemy's forgiveness. But that doesn't mean that justice gets to be denied, that justice gets to not be present. And since domestic courts are willing to violate state laws, you know what the law in 2016 in Ohio was? 50-50. It's going to be 50-50. Whole nation talks about how that changed everything in Kentucky. It didn't change anything in Ohio because there's no laws present in those courts, because there's no accountability present in those courts. You know what else would clean up the domestic court problems in Ohio? Take 20 of the worst judges of the worst counties and shoot them all on Sunday. Cut them down at the end of their fucking driveways. Bet you the ones that go to work are going to start taking more seriously, following the Constitution and state law. So what is this golden bridge of retreat that I speak of? Everybody, all our current public servants should have the opportunity to prove themselves to be the hero that at some point in their life they dreamt of being. And the way that city prosecutors show themselves to be part of the good guys, the way that police chiefs show that they're part of the good guys, is they go arrest the corrupt county. The way the state and Mike DeWine shows that they're part of the good guys and we should spare his kids and we should spare his grandkids. You're the prosecutor, Mike, of the most corrupt state in the union. You know who treasonously failed at their job to feed on public servants first? You know who treasonously failed at upholding the Constitution in the face of tomorrow's calamities? You know who lied to the public about what was going on during COVID, constantly fear-mongering? You know who criminally abused every kid in the state by closing school and removing the basic needs to socialization for nothing? You know who lied as a state prosecutor and banks weren't required to make Americans whole after stealing their homes and ruining their lives? The way you show Ohio that your family, Mike DeWine, is worthy of saving, I would argue, you couldn't find a better way to serve that idea than encouraging the cities to bring federal and state law to full bear against corrupt counties. And counties, you know who you should be feeding on? You got to feed on a bigger fish if you want to make a deal before you go to jail. Who's your bigger fish going to be? And it is a big problem. It's a big problem because for 3,400 and some days, a domestic court judge was allowed to continue her operations just the same. Day in, day out, ruining and destroying another family when they're in a time of need. Not only denying them counsel, but also then denying them any access to state and federal rights, putting it behind a paywall. That would be my suggestion. Because at any point, this is the worst part of it, at any point during this process, any one of the countless public servants that I've went to could have been a hero. There's a disgraced piece of shit judge in Summit County, Kim Hoover. Told him exactly what was going on. I got drugged and mugged. Another opportunity to ask for more help from more people. What a wonderful thing to do. You mean you're retired, so they can't take from you your career? You're coming up on your retirement, so what do you risk? Half a minute before you're in a nursing home? Half a minute before you're in a federal prison? What do you risk? Since you know you're being brought up on federal charges, why wouldn't you want to do something to make a difference? You finally got the lobbed ball coming over the plate and you could hit a grand slam. You don't choose to do it. And it's not because Kim Hoover was this amazing public servant throughout his career. It's because he was so compromised and of such low quality, so mentally ill or evil from the lack of accountability, that all he wanted to do was predate on me some more. The golden bridge that would save the most amount of lives and restore the United States Constitution in such a healthy, vibrant, and strong way, a way that has not yet occurred in the state of Ohio or in the United States. Because in this republic, law enforcement and prosecutors have not done their job. They have not fed on public servants first. I mean, imagine your city council in your local town is reading out some law, and the attorney's like, you don't want to do this. Why? Well, it violates the Constitution and state law. Well, yeah, but we blah, 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 blah. Then the city prosecutor comes in at the first reading. You don't want to do this. You're violating federal law. And then when they go ahead and do it, if they're that dumb and they go ahead and do it, then they all get arrested. And they get tried. When public servants violate state and federal law, they do far more damage than that one violent drug addict that I used as an example. I'd lived in like the nicest of places, had a lot of fiscal success, a lot of accolades, done an enormous amount of community service, been a wonderful neighbor wherever I've lived. None of that stopped Ohio's tyranny from feeding on me. None of it. And as somebody who got to meet his hero and be coached up by his hero, John Glenn, nothing I said here would he disagree a damn iota with. He wouldn't be a fan of the cursing. But then again, he didn't get to live through 3,400 days of his kids being criminally abused premeditatively for the purposes of extortions. He didn't get to live the indignity of watching oath takers with American flags on their shoulders steal your land, steal your home, steal your personal property, steal your ID, take away your vote, your ability to travel, and every other damn thing. Not Nazis, not Koreans, not Vietnamese. The historical precedent for debtors' prisons is you kill everybody involved with them. You lock them in their home and you burn them alive. You kill one of them, wait for them to go to church, nail everything shut on the church as you surround it, and you burn it to the ground. That's the legal precedent for these kind of crimes. What's the legal precedent of what we should do to somebody who deals in slavery, who has a doctorate in knowing better? What should we do to our law enforcement that allows that neighbor who has a doctorate in knowing better to be able to deal in slavery? Can you take property? Can you take a main residence of a property for back taxes? The answer is no. You can't throw somebody out and make them homeless. Feds don't do it. The state doesn't do it. The county does it endlessly. It's not just eminent domain. They got plenty of other ways to steal people's homes and personal property. Not to mention, just a little FYI, the whole point of property taxes was to build an American utopia. You know, your free water, your free natural gas, your free sewer, your free electricity. We just got to build infrastructure on these public works, and then it costs barely anything, and everybody could have access to it. We would never enforce it by taking away somebody's land. I mean, that's slavery. We couldn't do that. We'd never do that. And the feds have not given any aid to Ohio in these problems. They've made it worse. Not only do this FBI, if you were, let's say you had the temerity to hold fast, constantly ask law enforcement for help, even though they keep attacking you more and more and more and more and more, reach out to FBI to be fed back to your abuser who predates on you some more. You know who gives the state of Ohio money for locking up deadbeat dads? The federal government. So why would the federal government care that the county is in the business of manufacturing deadbeat dads out of American citizens? What's the point of having the Marines if they just come home to kill themselves because they experience the complete lack of the Constitution or any state law within the domestic courts? And they're tortured through the torturing of their own kids. You're not the world's best. You might be the most violent and exception at killing, but you're a loser and a failure to your oath. The United States isn't contained in a building. It's not contained in a flag. It's contained in whoever watches this, everybody who calls themselves an American, in their knowledge of and understanding of the United States Constitution. Am I a good American if I judge another for their religion? No, I'm a failure. I'm a loser American. Am I a good American to say, oh, well, racism exists because it's in the heart of a man. It's what's on the inside of a man. No, I'm a failure as a constitutional scholar. And if I held political office, tyranny. Because inside dialogues are sovereign. That's the whole point of the First Amendment. I don't make the world safer by removing my neighbor's ability to defend themselves. And the proof of that is there's never been more peace and thriving governments of and by the people worldwide, precisely because the largest export of the United States has been guns. We want guns in everybody's hands. So I would suggest that the most beautiful road to retreat for the state of Ohio, and by the way, we wouldn't have to do it in the whole country. As soon as a couple of states were made an example of, the worst of them, everybody else would snap in line. No more of governors pretending like, oh, well, guns make me nervous, so guns are just banned in the state. I'm going to do something about it. That bitch would be put in jail. How come it's okay for Gavin Newsom to have taken an oath to defend the United States Constitution, and then not only is there that enormous amount of theft of money, like I know the feds care about the theft of the money, what we need them to care about is the defense of the Constitution. What's the point of having a governor if they impose tyranny more strict than China? What's the point of having a governor if there's no governorship, like in the state of Ohio? Come to Ohio, where train accidents will be manufactured into internationally banned chemical weapons by your public servants. Come to Ohio, where your public servants will do all manners of heinous crimes and you will face zero justice. It will not be present in our courts. Well, come to Ohio. Even if you have the patience and you go through all the costs and inconvenience of our court system, nothing will ever be enforced. Welcome to Ohio. The golden bridge, the golden moment of opportunity that we currently have is that level of accountability. And having a whole bunch of public servants in Ohio going to federal prisons would be a lot healthier for everybody than having a whole bunch of public servants starting at the head with the governor and going right down through the ranks. Police chiefs, sheriffs, prosecutors, city, county, and state, governor. What's the point of having a senator? Honestly, if this is what's being allowed within the state of Ohio, what's the point of any of it? You don't vote out this problem. So the great opportunity is actually getting the snake of the republic to eat itself. And it can be done without violence. If everybody spoke honestly about what's going on, holy shit. You know how easy it would be to be thankful of that? You know how easy it would be for somebody to be thankful of a federal jail cell, knowing that their family is going to be spared? Criminally abusing my kids through their whole life, all because they volunteered. They volunteered because they believed in their dad's ability to bring this nonsense to an end. You think somehow that fight's going to get smaller through time? And I'm not trying to talk people into being violent. Yes, I am of such low quality of a human being that I would say, you know what? Judge Cook has 4 kids. Kill her and her entire family. I'm that much of a failure as a human being. Just like that little kid. You don't save the SS. You kill everybody there involved. So make no mistake, Ohio. I don't care how horribly they've abused you. If you feel the same and have an inclination in feeling the same, you need to be peaceful. And the reason you need to be peaceful is violence delayed is violence magnified. Violence delayed is violence magnified. You don't need that much faith to know, particularly when you're the one who's been so horrifically abused, that everything you're saying and experienced is true, to then be peaceful. Leadership begins with setting an example. I've also set the example for 3,400 days of having to carry the burdens of violence peacefully. What should a parent do when the other parent says, my goal is to criminally abuse those kids? Wouldn't a healthy parent's reaction be to kill that other parent? What happens when a public servant in Ohio takes your kids because of a rifle hanging on a wall and you go to the police and you get no aid? the violence is magnified. What happens when a police chief knows they're so corrupt and so of such a low criminal state that they quit the city of Akron? Isn't that just more violence? Why would I give any quarter to Sherry Bevin Walsh just because she retired and wants to pretend there's a statute of limitations? Why would I extend any quarter to the new county prosecutor within Summit who hasn't done fuck all? New person, same crimes. So to those of you out there in Ohio that have been predated on, I want you to use these horrible pains so that the things that are within you, you're forced to let go. All the stuff that's wrong, you got to let go. It's the only chance you got in keeping your insanity. And you got to practice as many healthy things as you can, because you're put in the impossible position that for you to be healthy, for you, it means you have to be free. And for you to be free, you have to kill people. And that is an impossible juxtaposition that the tyranny of Ohio has put you in. I don't want you to be exaggerating. I don't want you to be lying. There's no need. There's no need. And I don't want you to marginalize the righteousness of everything that I've said by becoming violent. I want you to magnify the violent by maintaining your peace. And that is how you would bring a bounty back to Ohio. Imagine a governor during COVID who said, you know what? So far, none of our hospitals have been overrun. This is what we know about the virus. Yeah, I don't, listen, overall morbidity, overall people dying goes up when you take their shot. So it'd be far better to spend time outside. If we're all going to be dying tomorrow, what a wonderful opportunity for us to take heed about what's important. So when's the last time you reached out to your family? Now, I'm not trying to induce you to get all your family sick. That's between you and your family. But I'm also suggesting that if you're really fearful that everything's ending, then you should be coming together. Isn't it time to go to church and sing? Ask for forgiveness. If we're all dying tomorrow, shouldn't you be getting to that nursing home and giving a hug to your loved one? How many businesses would be moving to Ohio from California precisely because the Constitution existed during COVID? The state doesn't create jobs. The state's supposed to regulate public servants. And I haven't heard any governor, any supposed person running for governor in Ohio to speak of that. So who cares what their courts say in Ohio? What reason have you given us to care? That you can go to the Ohio State Supreme Court twice and nothing changes? That our judges are happy to go play golf and be millionaires based on the debtors' prisons and the heinous crimes of domestic courts? Oh, I'm on the side of the law enforcement. I back the blue. You mean the group that violates the First Amendment endlessly on film? And it's not just a little disgusting that they took an oath. It's worse because so many of them are vets. This is the second time of them taking that same damn oath and being losers and failing it. There's no immunity for a public servant violating state law and federal law. And there sure shit ain't a statute of limitations for when these violations and predations have never been brought to an end. I'm not upset because I'm not over a divorce. I never got upset by the clinically diagnosed mentally ill person telling me that I'm finally done with her and she'll have nothing to do with me. That's not where my fight is. I wasn't a bad husband. I wasn't a bad father. I'm not going to fight my own family. But where my fight still remains is with the unchecked tyranny of blatant federal and state criminals who make their crimes a matter of record and do nothing about it. I'm sure the city of Akron has gotten plenty of chicken shit parking tickets, speeding tickets, but they have done nothing about the largest criminal abuser of kids, the largest criminal abuser state racketeering organization, which is Summit County Courts that operate as make all their crimes a matter of court record right in their downtown. They don't defend the state law. They don't defend the Constitution. So don't get it twisted. You should be thankful that the city of Akron cops aren't killing more of you Americans. The Golden Bridge of Retreat, the only one that spares we the people from taking that snake that's been feeding on us and cutting it into little itty bitty parts, which, by the way, President Trump, heinous crimes like this within a state put anybody who's sitting in office and presidency at risk. Because American tradition is to hunt tyranny head first. So why would you ever tolerate this? So leadership's about bringing everybody together on what they can agree upon. I think that makes a wonderful golden bridge of retreat. We don't need to kill the snake if it but will feed on itself first. And if it can't do that, and to all the public servants and to all the Americans and everybody in Ohio, you owe Katie, Ella, Leah, and Michael more. They believed in you. What do you mean dads are just being taken? Why are all my friends losing their dads? What is going on? Why isn't it that we're just spending half the time with you? They had no idea when they said, go get them, Dad. They had no idea that 3,400 and some days later, nobody would have done their damn jobs. I don't know what that sound is from. And you want to talk about why do kids, I don't know, not only why are kids getting married, like any male that's getting married at this point, you're insane. Any male interacting with any female, you're insane. All she has to do is tell a lie. And your local schools, your local colleges, your local universities, your domestic courts will remove all your state rights and all your federal rights and ruin you the rest of your life. Why would any kid give a shit about working hard to their future when they watch their dad be dealt with as a slave? The home that was paid in full and built by their dad for them, they have no access to. All their family heirlooms stole, no access to. And you want to pretend that this country is great? Remember, Ohio, victims of tyranny here in Ohio. Honor the truth of the violence that you've been obligated to bear through your peace, through peacefully magnifying that violence. And if the cities don't want to come together, if the snake doesn't want to feed on itself, if the cities are filled with prosecutors, if none of them are willing to begin doing their job of holding the county to legal account, even though their crimes are a matter of court record, and it's easy to find them, who's the judge's top campaign donor and who went through that system from being poor. Let's look at the cases. If they're not willing to do that, if the counties aren't willing to do that, if the state's not willing to do that, how much peace are you going to have, America, parents, the free, in killing everybody involved? $3,400, however many days. This is my number one Google search. How many days since September 1st, 2016? Because that's when Ohio's law enforcement, that's when Summit County found out that kids were being criminally abused in a home that was unfit for them, and they did nothing to aid those kids. And then the first thing they do was to violate all the federal laws and all the state laws so that they could abuse those kids some more. If I know that you're going to go kill somebody and I do nothing, I'm a criminal. That's the same idea that applies to our public servants. And America, Ohio, what do you care more about? Chicken shit parking tickets? The silent tax of speeding violations? Or the fact that slavery, debtors' prisons based on the criminal abuse, often in the abduction of American kids for the purposes of extortion by criminals masked, racketeering criminals masked as public servants. I think it's a beautifully built idea. Because at any point in this, Governor DeWine could have done his job and he'd have been a hero. 3,400 days that son of a bitch hasn't made that choice. At any point in this, Sheriff Fattree of Summit County could have been a hero, but that's not what that bitch chose. At any point, could 2 prosecutors in Summit County been a hero? 2 police chiefs, multiple judges within Summit County. Why would they? When being complicit, millionaire, federal criminals just means they got to behave the same way they've always behaved. Now, coming up on this election, if anybody in Ohio doesn't like the choices that they're being given, I want you to write the initials JJ in. Take your pencil and write JJ. JJ. If you think it'd be refreshing to have somebody, what do you mean? You could have just borrowed the money and bought the corruption of the court and avoided the mess. But instead that person said to themselves, of great things given, great things shall be required. And all we need is one honest person to go through this, and it would fix it forever. You don't want that person? What about somebody who's brilliant? Federal government paid an awful lot of my college because I'm way smarter than most people. The greatest dilemma to people who have been smart throughout time is the evil of the unchecked intellect. Living off a bicycle with no access to banking, no licensures to allow me to work. Anytime I get any money, including federal aid given by the president, the county just steals it right out of my account. I think that's pretty humble. I don't see myself above anybody. But because of all that pain, because of living through this and suffering it every single day for 3,440 some days, I sure as shit can understand the pain of my neighbor. My name is James Jeffries. And I'm not just saying I'm running for governor so that yet another federal law would be violated through the interruption and the censorship of this message, although that would be true as well. I have nothing to hide. And I'm tired. I'm tired of the complete lack of accountability within this state. It's disgusting. Give me an opportunity. I'll fix it. Just write in JJ. Easy to remember. 2 initials for a James, Jim, Jimmy, Jimbo, and Jeffries. Know your love.